TV public safety analyst Chris Lewis is standing by for us at our studios in downtown Toronto, a man who has many, many years, of course, in law enforcement with the Ontario Provincial Police Department, and knows a lot about these sorts of situations, of course, and what can happen and how chaotic things can actually be. Chris, always good to have you with us. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Todd.
I want to ask you about the positioning of this shooter on a 32nd floor of a major hotel in Las Vegas, right across from that outdoor concert, and what that says to you about the notion of an open-air concert and trying to even possibly defend against something like that.
Well, I think, he obviously very carefully decided he wanted a height advantage and he wanted to be facing the concert. The investigation will show whether he manufactured that or it was just good luck. I think probably he made it happen. Requested a certain, I want to be upstairs and I want to be on this side of the building. That's not uncommon, probably for very innocent reasons. But how do you defend against that? How do you defend when a crowd gathers at Nathan Phillips Square and somebody climbs up into the Sheraton Center across the street? I mean, you just can't fortify everything on the planet to prevent the loss of life. And this is a tragedy. This is the big one, the biggest you and I've ever seen, I'm sure, in our lifetimes. But ultimately, how do you stop it from happening? If it was the president was there or the Pope or somebody like that, it would have been fortified. Nobody would have been allowed within rifle shot on that side of that building, but that wasn't the case. And that's society and life and people enjoying themselves. So it's a tough one to prevent against, Todd.
You think about those agonizing moments, Chris, as the shooting was going on and police are trying to figure out where it is coming from and then realizing it's the Mandalay Bay, trying to get up there, trying to figure out what exact floor this was happening on and what room. How would a SWAT team do that, Chris?
Well, the officers on scene, there was many there, of course. They were doing what they do at concerts like that and talking to people and, looking after crowds. Once the shooting started, actually seeing where the shots were coming from wouldn't have been that difficult for those officers. But the SWAT team, of course, is going to get there. Normally, they'd stand off, they put a plan together, they do a lot of assessments and, and counter plans, etc. But in this case, they had to quickly determine with some certainty what room, floor, etc. this individual was in and hit it. And they wouldn't want to get the wrong room in this case. Not like just, looking for somebody in a warrant, you go through the wrong door. It's never good. But when you're going in with explosives, it's the big one. And they went in, and they went in quick, and so not a lot of planning. They just did what they did to try and prevent the loss of life. Very dangerous operation. Thankfully, none of them were hurt or killed. And, of course, the bad guy killed himself before they got there by all reports.
It is obviously very chaotic in the moments and the hours after as we try to figure out who was responsible for this. And, of course, ISIS, the terror group, being very opportunistic, decided to say they were linked to this incident. And, of course, that is not the case. What do you make of that, Chris? I
don't believe it for a minute. I mean, they've said that they were behind every bad thing that's happened over the last several years. I'm surprised they're not taking credit for JFK. That's just how they operate. They think that gathers them more support. But this guy doesn't fit the bill. His family members, generally family are the first to notice some different things when people become radicalized, generally young men that happens to. In this case, the family would know if he had suddenly turned the Muslim faith, like some reports out of the U.S., and they weren't seeing any of that. So this guy had some demons. There's something has occurred with him to make him go that route and take lots of innocent lives. But I don't think terrorism is behind it.
What happens now in terms of this investigation, Chris? Walk us through what we're going to see over the next couple of days.
Well, they very quickly were on to who he was and got on to, obviously, his partner who was out of the country at the time and family members. All that unfolds very quickly. They'd be trying to prove one way or another whether it was terrorist related, whether he had any linkages, who's he associated to, who's he been talking to in the internet, and all of that stuff. But they've got a major crime scene on the go there too. So looking at the thousands of cameras and the footage and interviewing people and making sure no one else is hiding anywhere on that property that, ultimately still trying to avoid or maybe been wounded and can't be helped. All those are very painstaking things and a lot is happening there. So I feel awful for the first responders in this case as well, obviously, as the victims and their families, because this is a bad one. This is as bad as it's going to get.
CTV public safety analyst Chris Lewis joining us from Toronto with his input. Thanks for this, Chris.
Thank you, Todd.